About a year ago, I received a bizarre text message from my mother. I'd asked her where she was, and her response was quite strange. She'd said that my Nana wasn't feeling well and that she was going to be taking her to the doctor. I had a sneaking suspicion that I was not being told the whole truth. So I did what every child does when they don't get what they want from parent A. I went straight to parent B. However, my father had been intensely media trained so as not to divulge any information to me whatsoever. For many, this would have been a dead end. Not for me, though. I knew exactly who would tell me the information that I needed to know. Our local county's public EMS dispatch log. That's right, down to the last 2 digits of an address. You can see where every aid car and ambulance is dispatched to within the county. As clear as day, when I checked this dispatch log, I saw my grandmother's address on the front page. She's okay now, thank goodness, but I was correct in that moment that something was seriously wrong. I immediately texted the screenshot to my parents. Quite a power move, if I might say. And they haven't tried to hide anything like that from me since. I've always been nosy. The discovery of that public dispatch log was born from the desire to know, hey, where's that siren coming from, and where's it going? However, as thirsty as I may be for information, it can be like drinking out of a fire hose at times. We are living in the golden age of information. Never before has humanity had access to so much of it on a daily basis. Just how much do we have access to? Scientists at UC San Diego in 2012 sought to quantify this. They found that the average person alive at the time consumed as much as 74 gigabytes of information per day. That is as much as 16 movies. They consume this through various methods like TV, phones, advertisements, radio, etc. Just 500 years ago, the average person would consume that amount of data in an entire year, only if they were very highly educated. In the grand scheme of human history, 500 years isn't actually all that long in terms of the massive change in human processing capacity. The force of this change was amplified about 30 years ago with the birth of our friend, the internet. The internet, as written by Kevin Kelly, the founder of Wired magazine, is home to over 1 trillion internet pages. In comparison, our brains only hold about 1 billion neurons, meaning that the global brain of the internet is actually much larger than the one of our own. The emergence and influx of the daily information coming at us from every angle thanks to the internet has posed an unprecedented challenge to humanity. How do we cope with it? Let's talk to Bob first and see how he's coped. Bob thinks that every word that escapes the words of a cable television news anchor is false and is propaganda aiming to subvert the American way of life. He looks to those that he trusts to get his information. Sounds reasonable, right? Wrong. The people that he trusts are actually few and far between. Bob thinks that he is one of the only people that can see through the mainstream media's facade and the lies and the conspiracy. But in reality, he's not happy, and he's most definitely not secure. He's constantly on edge, and he is chronically suspicious. But hey, let's not hate on Bob, right? He's only half the problem. Let's go talk to Dan. Dan's a pretty laid-back dude, pretty chill, if I might say. But he's incredibly naive. He's had multiple online relationships with princes in Egypt throughout his lifetime. He could read that the sky was purple and think that it was true by virtue of it simply being on the internet. He thinks that his worldview is plenty secure because he has zero hand in it. It goes where the wind blows, and he is frequently deceived. Bob reacts to an influx of information by believing none of it. And Dan reacts to the same overwhelm by believing all of it. They're both wrong. And to understand why, we need to look towards a psychological principle called basic trust. Coined by developmental psychologist Erik Erikson, Basic trust is a concept usually crystallized in infancy and early childhood, that the world is a reliable, trustworthy, and safe place to exist. Bob's basic trust has completely eroded, and Dan's has been blown out of proportion. If we want to look for truth and secure our worldviews with basic trust, we have to learn how to balance between chronic suspicion and chronic naivete, because these fundamental extremes yield miscalculations of truth, and we will not be able to live in a truthful society if we are on these extremes. Maria Ressa, a global journalist and Nobel Peace Prize winner, says it best in her book, How to Stand Up to a Dictator. Without facts, there is no truth. Without truth, there is no trust. And without trust, our shared reality and all meaningful human endeavors are dead. Many academics think that we are in, or at the very least, heading towards a post-truth society. But I'm not an academic. I'm an optimist. And I think that we can correct our path. The way that we do this, securing our worldviews and increasing our basic trust, revolves around how we filter, select, and utilize information. Firstly, from a top-down approach, what media that we're consuming as a society is preventing us from forming basic trust? As a first line of defense, ask yourselves, is that headline, documentary, or article leading me to an easy answer or to form an enemy? Is every politician corrupt? Is it every Republican's fault or every Democrat's? Is every immigrant inherently suspicious? The presentation of any group as a monolith, especially a monolith that is to be feared, is a fundamental misrepresentation, and it is preventing us from forming a society of truth. We must consider this as we look for truth. It is hard to do this. To employ nuance in our processing of media is a radical act of empathy and humility. To reject easy fear before it calcifies into hatred, it is difficult, and it is a radical act of empathy and humility that I'm imploring all of us to take. We must filter out media that says that any one group is to blame, because this is a misrepresentation. It is never that simple, and it does not need to be that simple in order to understand the world around us. Let's move away from the media that says that it is that simple, because this is fueling undue suspicion. So we've filtered out the media that we don't want to consume, but how do we pick the media that we do? This involves a selection process, and it is deeply personal to each and every one of us. I think that we all need to actively be seeking out media and information that secures our worldviews. Not that makes us feel like the world is all unicorns and rainbows, not something that comforts us, but something that truly strengthens our grasp on the world. For me, that is the EMS dispatch log. That is my favorite source of information because it makes emergencies that are usually shrouded in suspicion and secrecy feel navigable. Every time I hear a fire engine siren or an ambulance, there will be an element of fear. Somebody out there is having one of the worst days of their lives. We should feel that. That's empathy. We should feel a little bit uncomfortable. However, the secrecy is unnecessary, and it makes it seem much worse and much more unnavigable than it is. Armed with the information in that EMS dispatch log, I feel like the world is enlightened to me, and I know what's going on, and states of local emergency are more easily manageable. Find the media personal to you. No one of our selection processes is going to be the same, but find the media that makes you feel and think like that. That is the basic trust that we're talking about. And lastly, we've considered the media that we are not going to be consuming, and we've considered the media that we do. But what do we do with it? I think that media is just as much about what you do with it after reading or consuming it as it is the media itself. Our filtering and selection processes can work off of each other as we talk to people, as we share. One of my favorite things to do after I read something that challenges a worldview of mine or shocks and surprises me is to send a text to a friend or an email to a teacher saying, hey, I just read this. Pretty cool. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Our friends, our colleagues, our teachers, our religious leaders, all of these people can help us, and we can build off of each other's media processing policies. For example, just a couple weeks ago, I came across a case in Texas, totally by chance, in which the FDA's approval of an abortion drug, mifepristone, hung in the balance. I was outraged. Not a single major news organization had been reporting on the story at the time, a story that could instantaneously change the lives for millions of people in the United States, all because of one ruling. I did something with this outrage. I informed. I sent this link in this headline to people that I knew would care and would want time for a ruling. This is how we make meaningful use of the information that we consume. Doing something with the media that we consume makes it a tool, gives us power, secures our worldviews, and increases our basic trust, knowing that our peers are going to be making good faith efforts based on their information too. The sharing of intelligence, so that we are all working off of the basic set of facts, is a core tenet of a cooperative society that sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom and other extinct hominids, according to anthropological experts. One of my favorite quotes to live by is to not believe everything you think. But in order to form a secure worldview, to look after truth, and to embed our society with basic trust, you have to believe something. So I implore you, go out and use your own filtering and selection processes to find the media that is going to help you solidify what you believe. But most importantly, after you know what you do believe, go out and do something with it. Thank you.